We did universal school choice, education savings accounts, really. So we were a leader in school choice. We did a big expansion my first year as governor. It's important. This is basically saying, regardless of income, money's going to follow the child. And that's important because we focus this on low-income families, which we should. But if you're making $100,000 a year in Miami-Dade County, you're not living high on the hog. That's just the reality. And so we recognize that, and I think this is going to be a great source of opportunities. What it's done in Florida over the years, we were just ranked #1 in education by U.S. News and World Report on the NAEP scores for 2022. We were 3rd and 4th, respectively, in 4th grade reading and 4th grade math. And I can tell you that was not true when I was growing up in Florida, someone that went to public school. And I think part of what's happened is because parents have choices, not just with private scholarships, but also with charter schools. And then school districts have offered more choice options within the school district. You have a healthy competition for students. And if one charter school is doing something, the school district feels like they need to match it. If a private school is doing something, well, you see it. So to be able to have those scores, part of it was we had schools open during COVID in many of these other states. I think tragically did not, and some even locked them out for over a year. We thought it was very important that the kids were in. But I think that's going to be something that's really significant. And then part of what we're doing, too, is we emphasize that there's more than one way to skin a cat in terms of be successful. A 4-year brick and ivy university is one way you can be successful. It's not the only way, and it's not the best way for many, many folks. So we've had a renewed emphasis on workforce education. I just signed a bill this week. We're going to be getting things like apprenticeships into middle school and high school in a big way. And I think that that's great. And, you know, if you don't want to go in that direction, fine. But a lot of these students will have opportunities when they graduate high school if they have some of these concrete skills. And we're excited about that. Higher education, we did a big splash in. So we have some of the lowest tuition in the country. We haven't raised tuition in 10 years in Florida. So as an in-state resident, it's about $6,400 on average for tuition. Our out-of-state tuition is lower than a lot of in-state tuition. It's about $16,000 for out-of-state. But we made the decision, you know, these universities are funded by the taxpayer. They are there to serve the best interests of the state and the people of Florida. They don't have license to just do whatever they want. And if they're pursuing ideology, if they're trying to use the university to foment things like social activism or political activism, that's not a good use of our tax dollars. We believe university's mission is the pursuit of truth, to really welcome critical thinking and robust debate and prepare students to be citizens of our republic. So we are the first university system, first state to eliminate from our university system this idea of DEI. We signed the bill. It's gone as of Monday. And it stands for diversity, equity, inclusion. But in reality, that's a veneer to impose orthodoxy on the university. If you dissent from that, watch out. They even have, in different parts of the country, they've had prospective faculty have to take a DEI oath just to get hired. And these are folks, if they say, you know, I believe everyone should be treated equal regardless of their race or ethnicity, they will mark you down for saying color blindness and equal treatment. And so this has become a cottage industry. It's become actually a major grifting opportunity because you'll have these DEI consultants. They'll show up. Yeah, I would like to come and lecture about how capitalism is racist, only if you pay me $50,000 an hour. And I'm like, okay, come on. So our view is that DEI, really the way it's practiced, stands for discrimination, exclusion, and indoctrination. And that has no part in our public institutions. So it's gone in Florida. We also signed legislation kneecapping this idea of ESG in our state. No ESG in our pension fund. We got a $180 billion pension fund. No ESG in contracting, local, state government. The bond ratings have to be done based on credit, not based on ESG. And the ESG stuff, really, that's just a veneer as well. It's a veneer for them to be able to justify departing from traditional economic and business principles and mobilizing really significant economic resources in service of an ideological agenda. And they want that agenda. They'll say, you know, a climate change or anti-Second Amendment or whatnot. But I think on a more, and I think the policies they're pursuing will be destructive. But I think on a more fundamental level, they're trying to change policy in this country without having to go through you folks, without having to actually put their name on a ballot or vote for folks, because they know a lot of the policies they're advocating would not do well at the ballot box. So can you just, are they allowed to just dispense with that, collude together, use massive amounts of economic power to change the economy or to change policy? And our view is that we, the people, govern, and we don't want a social or economic transformation without representation. And so ESG is DOA in the state of Florida. We have a budget surplus. We have the second lowest per capita debt in the country. Our economy in Florida is about $1.2 trillion, and our debt's about $20 billion. And so imagine if our federal government had that debt to GDP ratio. The debt is bigger than the entire economy right now nationally. So we have very low debt, but we wanted to go even lower. So we actually instituted an accelerated debt repayment program with part of our surplus. So we're going to try to end up as the lowest per capita debt of anywhere in the country. And I think that that's important just because you look at these states that are high tax states. Yes, they're high tax now, but if you look at their fiscal trajectories going forward, it's truly disastrous. And so people know, if you're thinking about investing there, you know the climate's actually going to get worse. I think Florida is the opposite. I think you look at it and you say, wow, they're really built for the long haul. Not only do they not have an income tax, not only do they have a reasonable regulatory system, there's going to be no need for them to have income tax or any of this other stuff because they're fiscally sound. We also did a big thing for our business environment by doing tort reform in Florida. We had never been able to get that done. We have a very powerful trial bar in Florida, and they've played on both sides of the aisle, and they've gotten a lot of Republicans to support. And our view is just, you know, a legal case should be about the merits. It shouldn't be a business opportunity to try to generate a settlement. And that had been one thing that had been holding our business climate back. And now that we've taken care of that, I think it's going to be a big deal for a number of different ways. So, and then we did a lot of other stuff. I mean, constitutional care. You guys are very good on that. In Florida, you know, we've had to work to get there. You know, we were able to do that. We were able to do other stuff with education, crime. We're doing. You know, New York gets rid of cash bail. The inmates basically get put right. They're running the asylum basically in some of these states. We're doing bail reform Florida style, meaning, you know, you're going to pay the consequences for your actions, and we're not going to let liberal judges put you back on the street. We're going to have a uniform bond schedule, and we're going to hold people to that, especially when you see our crime rate's at a 50-year low. We're a law and order state. We're proud of that. But I think what we've seen is when there are criminals who commit serious crimes, they've been arrested so many times. So some people throughout this process have decided, usually a judge, to put them back on the street. And we don't want to do that. We want to make sure that we're holding them accountable. We also we're challenging a bad Supreme Court decision by authorizing the death penalty for pedophiles. I think that when you have some of these people really destroy young people's lives, you deserve to have the ultimate punishment be in the mix. And I think that'll get challenged legally, but I think we can ultimately win given the current composition of the Supreme Court. So, and we did a lot more, and we can talk more offline if you want to know. But I think what we showed in Florida is that you're given these opportunities. You need to make the most of them. You need to know how to take all these things that we believe in, which is great, get it through a constitutional system and get it to stick, so that's the foundation of your state or wherever you represent going forward. And that's what we've been able to do. And I think that it shows that it can be done, because if you look nationally, people are very pessimistic about what's going on with the country, understandably so. And a lot of people think that the best days of the country are behind us. But I think Florida provides a ray of hope that it doesn't have to be this way. It can get better. It's going to require a lot of fight. It's going to require that we do a lot of different things. I mean, we need to restore a sense of sanity to our society in a variety of different ways. I mean, when you have somebody competing, on the men's swim team for 3 years and then switches to the women's and they say that's the women's champion, people know that that's just not right. We also have to do sanity in our basic economic policy and budget policy. Somewhere along the line, they just decided it doesn't matter how much money that you spend, that you can somehow just keep doing this indefinitely. They've added in the last 6 or 7 years, they've added like $10 trillion to the national debt. It took over 200 years in this country to reach $10 trillion. And of course, it fuels the inflation. It really makes it more difficult for working people. And it's almost like if you do the right thing and you're working hard, it's harder for you than if you don't. Like right now, they penalize, under Biden rule, they penalize prospective home buyers with good credit so that they can subsidize people with bad credit. And you're like, is that really the incentives we want to do? And I think it creates problems when people see us with such a bad environment, because who's going to believe in the American dream at that point? I can tell you, I was growing up, I'm a blue-collar kid. I didn't have anything. So when I turned 18, I just worked odd jobs to get through school and everything. So minimum wage, I'm there. I remember the summer before I went to college, I worked as an electrician's assistant, 6 a.m. every morning, 5 days a week. Most of my friends were not doing that over the summer and kind of kicking back and having fun before they went off to their endeavors. But we did that. And, to be able to get the paycheck, I figured, I have to do this because, if I do it and I work hard, it'll pay off. Now, I also learned a little bit of lesson on that in terms of government. I showed up my first day, work boots, jeans, shirt, like you would for doing that, and they sent me home. And I'm like, what did I do? I showed up on time, and they said they couldn't determine whether my work boots were OSHA approved or not. And so they said it may be a safety hazard. And they were old boots, probably somewhere in the family. And I'm like, they were really good boots. And so I had to go buy OSHA approved boots, which basically cost me about how much money I made my first week anyways. So I don't think it made me any safer. It did make me a little bit poorer, but it just showed me government was telling me what was in my interest there. And in reality, it didn't end up helping me. But I always felt like if you work hard, you're going to be able to do well. I tell young kids, the only thing you control is how hard you work. You look in that mirror and you're getting the most out of your God-given ability, doors will open for you. May not happen every time, but just keep knocking on the door and good things will happen. And I still believe that, but I also think it's a little more difficult today than maybe it has been in the past. And at the end of the day, what our country needs to be about is this idea that it really doesn't matter where you start from, that people have an opportunity to do big things in this country, and that's been true historically, and we need to make sure it's true again. We also need to restore a sense of normalcy to our communities. I mean, it is not normal to have prosecutors letting people out of prison, refusing to prosecute cases, letting basically the inmates run the asylum. It's not normal to have a border overrun with millions and millions of people and our government do next to nothing to stop it, knowing that fentanyl is pouring into this country and killing Americans in record numbers. That is not a normal society. We also need to restore integrity to our institutions. I'm a Navy veteran, and I'm proud of it. I remember John Kennedy said that people can look at their life with a great deal of pride and say, I served in the United States Navy if you've done it. And there's a great history, great people in all our services. And when I was serving, and we were in Iraq in 07, 08, I was serving alongside SEAL Team 1, but we had Marines in theater, Army. These were all great people. There was a sense of mission. Even in places like Fallujah, knowing you would get sent there, recruiting was still strong. People knowing they would get sent to Iraq. Most of the people in their early 20s had spent more time in Iraq and Afghanistan than they had back home since they had joined. It wasn't a cup of tea. It wasn't fun, and yet people still wanted to join. And I think it's because they understood, wearing the cloth of your country and stepping up, even in conflicts that weren't going well, that mattered. You look now, the military is going in the direction of politicization. When I see them focusing on things like drag queens for recruiting, you're like, this really has lost its way. And is it any wonder that recruiting is in the toilet right now? So I think that you need to restore a sense of mission, and it's all about being able to fight and win wars. And when you have that sense of mission and nothing's going to detract you from it, man, morale goes through the roof. because people feel like they're part of something that matters. And right now, I don't see that happening. I think it's also true, and talk about integrity in terms of our economy and corporate America. We just can't have a functioning economy if these companies are taking positions on every political issue under the sun. I mean, we really need to reorient it to where the incentives are. You know, you got to focus on doing what matters and honoring your fiduciary obligation. Part of that's ESG, but I think it's a larger cultural issue. And then, you know, as Jason kind of alluded to, we had a huge problem during COVID with some of the rot in these public health bureaucracies. They believed in telling noble lies so that you would behave the way they wanted you to behave. And that's not the way you run an operation. You level with people, you provide them the facts, and then you trust them to make the decisions that are best for them and their family. You do not try to override that, and you certainly don't try to sell them a bill of goods. And so I think that whole infrastructure failed during COVID. I'm concerned that there's not been any accountability for any of the bad decisions. In fact, they seem to want to be doubling down. They want to do this World Health Organization treaty. We actually passed a law in Florida saying we're not recognizing that if Biden tries to do it. So don't worry about us. But you have so you have this. They want to institutionalize lockdowns. They act like this worked when it did incredible damage throughout our country. I mean, look at like Florida, our unemployment rate's 2.6%. New York is 4.1. Why is the gap? It's part of it's the taxation, and yes, but part of it was the lockdowns. You know, it destroyed parts of the economy. And so the idea, and it didn't stop the spread. So the idea that we would even be entertaining that going forward is absolutely crazy. And so I think that we need to make sure that we say Fauciism was wrong. Fauciism was destructive, and we will never let Fauciism take root in this country ever again. So, final thing I'll just say, and I look forward to hearing from you, is you know, these fights are not easy. I think when you look, there's a reason why things have gotten crazy in this country. There's a lot of powerful people that want it to be. A lot of institutions push that direction. When you kind of step out and you speak truth, you get a lot of blowback for that. But I think what I found in Florida is no governor ever received more incoming, I would say, in modern history.
All right, again.